I didn't want to die in public. It was rude. But the marble floor of the big train station was tilting under my feet, and the darkness creeping in from the edges of my eyes felt warmer than the cold December wind blowing through the doors. My mop dragged across the same small patch of floor for the 4th time. My arms were moving on their own. My brain had basically given up trying to explain why I was still standing. 4 hours into a 6-hour shift that didn't officially exist. $60 cash, no questions asked. That was the deal with the night supervisor who looked the other way when people like me showed up for work that wasn't on any paper. I caught my own reflection in the shiny brass of a sign kiosk nearby. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks. When did my face get that sharp? The infected cut on my left cheek throbbed with every heartbeat. Hot and angry under the little bandage I'd made from stolen gauze. The fever made everything feel far away, like I was watching someone else's life through thick, foggy glass. The white uniform hung off me like a sheet on a stick. I'd lost 20 pounds in 8 weeks. I'd stopped getting on the scale a long time ago. Stopped looking at a lot of things, really. It was easier to keep your head down. Keep your hands busy. Stay invisible. The group had taught me that lesson with a burn on my cheek and bruises that never quite went away from the inside of my elbows. My fingers ached where I gripped the mop handle, not from work, from something deeper, the kind of tired that lives in your bones when your body is eating itself to survive. When had I last eaten? Yesterday morning, maybe. 3 crackers I stole from the staff break room. My stomach had stopped growling 2 days ago. It just went quiet and numb, and I'd learned to ignore that silence. The Christmas lights strung across the high ceiling blurred and doubled above me. Pretty. I used to love Christmas in this station. Back when I was Maya Carter, 3rd year medical student, future doctor, a girl with a future, before I became a ghost haunting maintenance tunnels. Before I learned exactly how much a pint of blood was worth to certain people. I pressed my palm against my forearm and felt the heat burning from under my skin. The spot where they'd taken blood that morning was hot, swollen, furious. I needed to clean it properly. I needed to do a lot of things. I needed to run, disappear, stop thinking about what I should do, and just survive the next 5 minutes. The station doors opened again. December wind cut through the building, carrying snow and the smell of the city. I shivered so hard the mop clattered against the floor. Just cold, just tired, just finish the shift, Maya. Get the money, find somewhere warm to sleep that isn't the tunnels. Then the crowd changed. I'd learned to read crowds working nights here. Late commuters moved in messy patterns, everyone in their own little world, brushing past each other with that city coldness. But this was different. This was water splitting around a stone. This was noise dropping dead like someone had pulled a curtain over the whole room. I looked up. He moved through the station like gravity itself bent to let him through. Tall, way over 6 feet even at a distance. Dressed in black that made the shadows cling to him like they belonged there. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. Beautiful the way sharp things are beautiful. Dangerous. But it was the ink that marked him as something else entirely. Tattoos crawled up from the collar of his black shirt, complicated patterns wrapped around his throat like fingers. I'd seen gang tattoos during my time in hospital emergency rooms, but this wasn't anything I recognized from the usual families. This was something else, elegant, lethal, the kind of mark that says power without needing a single word. The crowd split wider. Even the police officers near the ticket windows looked away. That kind of power, the kind that makes authority itself flinch, isn't just built on fear. It's inherited, cultivated, fed with blood and time until it feels as natural as breathing. His people followed behind him. 3 men in dark suits moving with that smooth, practiced coordination of guys, trained to kill but told to look like businessmen. One spoke quietly into his sleeve. Another scanned every face in the building with eyes that sorted threats in split seconds. The third kept his hand inside his jacket. Ready, I needed to move. I needed to get out of his path. Fade back into the background the way I'd been taught. Maintenance workers were furniture, seen but not noticed. Stay invisible, stay safe. My legs had different plans. The first step went wrong. My knee buckled like a hinge with a broken pin. I caught myself on the mop handle, knuckles white. The whole station spun, not the slow sway of being tired. A violent tilt like the whole building had been knocked sideways. Gray crept in from the edges of my vision. In the back of my head, the medical student part of me supplied the term automatically. Hypovolemic shock. Blood pressure dropping. Heart rate going too fast trying to compensate. Body shutting down the parts it doesn't need to protect the core. I was going to faint, not here, not in front of him. My knees gave out completely. The mop hit the marble. I fell, and I didn't hit the ground. Strong arms caught me in the middle of going down and pulled me against a chest that felt like granite wrapped in expensive fabric. My head rolled against something that smelled nothing like tunnels or maintenance closets. Cedar, leather, something warm and completely foreign to the life I'd been surviving. I've got you. The voice was deep and quiet, with just the faint edge of an accent that softened his English at the corners. The kind of voice that controlled rooms without raising its volume. I tried to speak, tried to apologize, tried to explain that I was fine and didn't need anyone's help, but my tongue was thick and my body was done listening to me. Through half-closed eyes, I saw his face up close, sharp features, eyes so dark they pulled light in and gave nothing back. A face that belonged on old warrior paintings, beautiful and brutal in exactly equal amounts. The tattoos continued under his collar. I could see the edges of patterns I couldn't read. He adjusted his hold, one arm under my knees, the other behind my back. His hand brushed my forearm, the one with the fresh needle mark from that morning, and I felt him go completely still. Not startled, still, like the whole world paused on a single frame. His fingers were warm against my fever, hot skin. His thumb grazed the swollen spot hidden under my sleeve. Then he pushed the fabric up. I tried to pull away, but I had no strength left. I could only watch as he uncovered the evidence I'd been hiding for months. The needle marks, the bruising in patterns, too specific to be random. 4 oval marks the color of old wine, finger-shaped, unmistakable, and beneath them older scars, the kind that looked like drug use to people who didn't know better. But to anyone who did know, they told a completely different story. His entire body went rigid, those dark eyes fixed on my arm with an intensity that should have scared me half to death. But there was no confusion in his face, no curiosity, just recognition, like he'd seen this before. Like he knew exactly what those marks meant and who made them. His jaw clenched. The tattoos on his throat shifted as he swallowed. When he looked up at the crowd, at the commuters pretending not to stare, his face had changed into something else. The beautiful brutality had become just brutal, a predator who just identified prey. He was scanning the station, looking for someone, the handlers, the ones who always watched to make sure their supply didn't wander off. Who did this? His voice had changed too, still quiet, but there was something underneath it now, something ancient and dangerous living beneath the surface of his words. The kind of rage that burns cold instead of hot. I pulled weakly at my sleeve, muscle memory, cover it. Deny it, survive, I'm fine, I just fell. You fell. He said it in a way that made clear he knew exactly how much of a lie that was. His hand moved to my face, fingers gentle as they tilted my chin up. His thumb brushed the edge of my bandage. He pulled the gauze aside. I watched his face as he saw the brand. The infected, jagged scar that marked me as property. A symbol burned into my skin with a heated blade. His expression went absolutely cold, not angry, past anger, into a kind of lethal calm that made my blood run cold even through the fever. Vessel. He said the word low, almost to himself. Then louder to someone behind him. Bring the car now, wait. I tried to push away from him, tried to get my feet under me. I don't even know you. My name is Kai Jian. He said it like it should mean something. Like the name itself carried weight that people could feel. When I just stared at him blankly, Something that might have been approval moved through his dark eyes. And right now, what you need is medical care, food, and somewhere safe to recover. I can give you all three. I have to go back. My voice cracked. I have to. If they realize I'm missing, they already know. He started walking, carrying me like I weighed absolutely nothing. They're watching right now, which means you can't go back. The station blurred as he moved through it. I could see his men forming a wall around us, hands inside jackets, eyes moving across the crowd with that quiet, lethal focus. Commuters parted without being asked, that ancient instinct making people step back from barely contained violence. This is kidnapping. I mumbled it against his shoulder, too exhausted to mean it. This is theft. His arms tightened around me just slightly. You were stolen first. I'm stealing you back. Cold air hit us as we walked out onto the street. A black SUV sat at the curb, its windows so dark they looked like solid obsidian panels. One of his men opened the door. Kai slid inside without slowing down, still holding me. The door closed. The world outside went quiet and far away. Inside smelled like leather and danger and something else I didn't have a name for yet. Safety, maybe. The kind I'd forgotten was real. He settled me on the seat beside him, his hand steady on my shoulder. You're safe now. That's all that matters. Safe. The word felt like a word from another language, a language I used to speak. Where are we going? My voice was barely there. He pulled his jacket off and put it over my shaking shoulders. The fabric was still warm from his body, impossibly soft. My home. I have doctors. They'll treat the infection. The malnutrition, his jaw clenched as he looked at my branded cheek. Everything. Why? The question hung between us. Why would a man who looked like walking death decide to save someone like me? What did he want from this? What was the angle? His hand moved to my face. His thumb traced the air beside the bandage without touching it. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but something personal lived underneath the words, because I recognized the mark. And I thought I'd burned that operation to the ground 2 years ago. The car pulled into traffic. Through the window, I watched the station disappear behind us. The building where I'd been invisible, the tunnels where I'd been hiding, the life I'd barely been surviving. They'll come for me. I whispered it to the tinted glass. The group always collects what's theirs. Let them. Kai's dark eyes found mine, and for the first time since I'd become a ghost, I saw something more frightening than the people hunting me. I saw war. I've been looking for an excuse to finish what I started. You just gave me one. The city lights blurred past the windows as we drove into the unknown. Every survival instinct I had screamed, that I'd just traded one monster for another. But as his jacket warmed my shaking body, and his steady presence filled the space beside me, I couldn't find the fear I knew I was supposed to feel. Maybe I was too tired. Or maybe, just maybe, the monster who caught me was different from the ones who'd broken me. I woke up to silk, not the rough, scratchy cotton of a shelter cot, and definitely not the mildewed blanket I'd been using in the tunnels. This was the kind of fabric that whispered against your skin, cool and impossibly soft, like water that had decided to become something you could sleep under. My eyes opened to darkness, but it was the wrong kind of darkness. Not the heavy underground black I'd gotten used to. This was something deeper, more intentional. Heavy curtains blocked what felt like daylight beyond them. The air smelled clean, sharp and antiseptic underneath, but below that, something else. Cedar, leather. The same scent that had wrapped around me in that car. His scent. Panic should have hit immediately. Instead, my body registered comfort first. The absence of cold, the absence of hunger cramps, the absence of that constant low-grade terror that had become my normal. The fever that had been eating me alive felt distant, muted, and Roman 4 line ran into my left arm, the tape holding it down applied with real medical care. I tried to sit up. Every muscle screamed, weak and shaky but working, better than they'd been in weeks. How long had I been out? The room came together as my eyes adjusted. Expensive, minimal, floor, the ceiling windows hidden behind blackout curtains. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a design magazine, all clean lines and dark wood. One piece of art on the wall. A traditional ink painting of a tiger, its eyes following the room even in the dimness. This wasn't a hospital. This was someone's home, his home. The door opened without warning. No knock, no announcement. Just the soft click of a lock disengaging, and then he was there, filling the doorway the way he filled every space, with a presence that felt almost physical. Kaijian looked different in the light, filtering around the curtain edges. Less like a walking shadow. More like a man, but no less dangerous. He wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His forearms were corded with muscle and wrapped in more of that intricate ink that seemed to tell a story I couldn't read. His dark eyes found mine immediately, and I felt the weight of that look like a hand pressed against my chest. "You're awake?" His voice was quieter than I remembered, almost gentle. "Don't try to move too fast. You've been out for 36 hours. 36 hours, a day and a half I'd lost entirely. Where am I? Your home, Manhattan, the penthouse." He moved into the room with that same fluid purpose in every step. "You needed medical care. I provided it." I looked at the Roman IV and then at the medical equipment on the nightstand, and I hadn't noticed before a blood pressure cuff. Needles still sealed in sterile packaging. This wasn't just a bedroom. This was a private medical suite. The group, my voice cracked. "They'll find me, they won't." He stopped at the foot of the bed, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed but eyes completely focused. "This building has security that makes Fort Knox look like a screen door. No one gets in without my permission. No one." The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it highlighted a different problem. I'd escaped one cage and woken up in another. A prettier cage, certainly, but the door was still locked. "I need to leave." I reached for the Roman IV, fingers clumsy against the tape. "You need to stay still." He moved fast. Faster than someone his size had any right to, crossing the distance between us in 2 strides. His hand caught my wrist, stopping me without hurting me. His skin was warm against mine, that touch sending an unwelcome current of awareness through my exhausted body. "You pull that out before the doctor says you can, and you'll bleed. You don't have blood to spare." I tried to jerk away. His grip didn't get tighter, but it didn't let go either. We stayed frozen like that, his hand around my wrist. My pulse slamming against his fingers. Could he feel that? The way my heart was racing, not from fear, but from something more complicated. "Let me go." I hated how weak I sounded. "No, simple, final." He released my wrist but didn't step back. This close I could see details I'd missed in the station. The faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. The way his pupils widened slightly when he looked at my face. The muscle ticking in his jaw. Not until you're strong enough to survive on your own. "And right now, Maya Carter, you are nowhere close." Hearing my full name from his mouth sent ice down my spine. "How do you? I know everything." He finally stepped back, giving me space to breathe. "Medical student." "Johns Hopkins, 3rd year before you dropped out 8 months ago. No missing persons report filed. No family searching. You became a ghost by choice before the group made it permanent. The clinical rundown of my life falling apart should have felt like an invasion. Instead, it felt like being seen, for the first time in months, not as property, not as a body to be used. As a person who had a history and a name. "Why do you care?" It came out sharper than I meant. "What do you want from me?" His expression didn't change, but something moved in his eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "I want to know who did this. Names, locations, everything, so you can what? Start a war," I laughed. The sound came out bitter. "I'm nobody, I'm not worth. Don't." The word cracked like a whip. He leaned forward, hands on the footboard of the bed, and the intensity in his eyes pinned me in place. "Don't tell me what you're worth. The people who hurt you don't get to decide your value." Before I could answer, a knock came at the door. "Polite waiting, come in," Kai said. He didn't look away from me. An older man entered, gray, haired, professionally dressed, carrying a well-used medical bag. He looked at the tension between us and cleared his throat quietly. Mr. Gian, I'm ready to examine the patient, if you'll allow me. Kai straightened, but didn't leave. He just moved to stand by the window, arms crossed. The message was clear. I could be examined, but not alone, not unguarded. The doctor approached with calm, practiced steadiness. I'm Dr. Park. I've been monitoring you since you arrived. How are you feeling? Tired? Weak? I watched him snap on latex gloves. Completely normal given your condition. He checked the Roman 4, then wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my upper arm. The Velcro rip was loud in the quiet room. Your blood pressure was dangerously low when you came in. We've been giving you fluids and electrolytes to stabilize you. The cuff squeezed and released. He frowned at the reading. Still low, but getting better. I need to examine your arms, may I? I wanted to say no. I wanted to keep everything hidden under long sleeves like always. But Dr. Park's eyes were kind, and Kai's presence by the window felt like a wall between me and whatever came through the door. I nodded. Dr. Park pushed up my right sleeve first. His sharp intake of breath told me he saw what I already knew was there. The full record of abuse written on my skin. Fresh needle marks barely scabbed over, older ones yellowed and purple. And underneath everything, the finger, shaped bruises that never quite faded. How often? He asked it quietly. Every 10 days, sometimes sooner. They gave me iron infusions afterward to keep my heart from stopping. Just so they could drain me again. He moved to the left arm. That one was worse. The puncture from that morning was swollen and radiating heat. Dr. Park touched the area gently, and I flinched back. This is badly infected. Sepsis is a real risk. He looked up at Kai. She needs aggressive antibiotic treatment. If she doesn't respond in 24 hours, we'll need to consider Roman 4 antibiotics in a hospital. No hospitals. Kai's voice was firm. Too many questions. Too many records. Treat her here. Dr. Park hesitated, then nodded. He lifted his stethoscope, warmed it against his palm before pressing it against my chest. Deep breath. I did. He moved it slowly, listening to my heart, my lungs. His frown deepened, elevated heart rate. Your heart is working too hard, and I'm hearing some things in your lungs that concern me. He pulled back and met my eyes. When did you last eat a full meal? The question shouldn't have been hard to answer, but as I tried to remember, I realized I genuinely couldn't. Days blurred together in the tunnels, stolen crackers, half a sandwich from a trash can near a food cart. Nothing that counted as a meal. I don't know. Dr. Park looked at Kai. Severe malnutrition. Her body is consuming itself for energy. Muscle breakdown. Almost certainly vitamin deficiencies. And given the tremors I'm seeing, possibly low blood sugar. Fix it? Kai's voice left no room for argument. It isn't that simple. Doctor. Park began packing his bag. Her digestive system has been essentially dormant. We need to reintroduce food slowly, or we risk something called refeeding syndrome, which can be fatal. Small amounts every 2 hours, bland and easy to digest. I'll handle the food. Kai cut in. You handle the infection and the blood work. Blood work, the phrase made my stomach tighten. What blood work? Dr. Park paused, glancing at Kai. Kai gave a single nod. We need to understand exactly what's been done to you. Dr. Park explained gently. A full blood count, a metabolic panel, screening for infections. And he hesitated. We need to know how much blood volume you've actually lost. Why does that matter? This time, it was Kai who answered. Because I need to know if what I saw in that station was attempted murder or just criminal negligence. The coldness in his voice made me shiver even in the warm room. Dr. Park drew the blood quickly, labeling each vial with practiced efficiency. When he reached for my face, I jerked backward on instinct. I need to look at the wound on your cheek, he said softly. I won't hurt you, but hands reaching toward my face triggered something deep and ugly in me. Hands holding me down while the brand burned into my skin. I couldn't stop the small sound that escaped my throat. Kai was there instantly, kneeling beside the bed, putting himself in my direct line of sight. Look at me, his voice changed. Not commanding now, grounding. Just look at me. Not him. Just me. I focused on his face. The scar through his eyebrow, the sharp line of his jaw, the tattoos disappearing under his collar. Anything except the hands near my face. That's it, Kai said quietly. Just keep your eyes on me. I felt the bandage peel away. Felt cool air on the infected wound. Dr. Park's touch was careful, but I gripped the sheets hard enough to hurt my fingers. Kai reached out slowly, letting me see him do it, and rested his hand over mine, not grabbing, not holding. Just there, an anchor. This is very infected. Dr. Park's voice was controlled, but only barely, and the scarring itself. This was done deliberately. Precisely, someone with medical knowledge made this mark. They understood exactly how deep to cut to leave a permanent scar without causing immediate danger. Can you read it? Kai asked. Dr. Park was quiet for a moment. It means vessel, container. She's been branded as someone else's property. Whoever did this has medical training. This isn't street violence. This is calculated torture. The room went silent. I could feel Kai's hand tighten fractionally over mine, the only crack in his composure. Clean it, he said finally. Make it as painless as you can. Then tell me how long until the results are ready. The blood work, doctor. Park said, will take a few hours through my private lab if I rush it. But Mr. Gian, I need to be direct about something. Speak. This young woman is in critical condition. Not immediate danger, but very close. Her body has been systematically drained and abused for months. Malnutrition, chronic blood loss, untreated infections, trauma. He applied a fresh bandage with careful precision. She needs rest, proper food, and safety. If she faces any additional stress or harm, her body will simply stop. Do you understand that? I understand. Kai's thumb traced a quiet pattern over my knuckles. She will not be harmed again. You have my word. Your word means something, Doctor, Park acknowledged. But I'm not worried about you harming her directly. I'm worried about what happens when whoever owns her comes looking. Because they will come looking. Let them. Kai's voice dropped into something dangerous, something ancient. I'll be waiting, Doctor. Park packed up his supplies, gave me a last long concerned look, and left with instructions about antibiotics and feeding schedules. The door clicked shut, and then it was just me and the man who'd taken me from my captors. Kai released my hand, but didn't stand. He stayed kneeling beside the bed, eye level with me, close enough that I could see the tiny flecks of gold in his dark irises. Maya, my name sounded different in his voice. I need you to tell me everything. Who branded you? Who takes your blood? Where they keep you? All of it. Why? I searched his face for the hidden angle, the trap underneath. Everyone always wanted something. You don't know me, I'm nobody to you, so why do you care? His hand lifted slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers traced the air beside the fresh bandage on my cheek. Not touching, just close enough that I felt the heat of his skin. Because I recognized the mark, his voice was quiet. And I thought I had burned that operation down 2 years ago. The words landed like a physical blow. You know about the group? I know about all of it. His jaw clenched, the blood harvesting, the forced donations, the branding of vulnerable people to mark them as livestock. I found one of their facilities 2 years ago. I burned it. I killed everyone inside. I thought I'd ended it. You killed. I couldn't process it. This man kneeling beside my bed with gentle hands and careful words was casually telling me he'd committed mass murder. They deserved it. He said it simply. And apparently I didn't finish the job because you exist, which means someone survived. Someone rebuilt. His eyes found mine, and I saw something that looked like guilt underneath the rage. Someone I missed is doing this to you, which makes it my failure. That's you didn't. I did. He stood abruptly, moving to the window with both hands shoved in his pockets. I thought I was thorough. I thought I'd cut out the cancer, but I left a piece behind and it grew back and it found you. He turned, backlit by the light around the curtains. So yes, Maya. I care because your suffering is my failure. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to understand a crime lord with a conscience. A killer who looked at my branded face with something that almost resembled tenderness. The blood work, I said instead. Why does it matter so much? What are you looking for?" He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. "Doctor, Park will run a full panel. Blood type, antibodies, any markers that might tell us who specifically wanted your blood. Some people," he paused, choosing each word, "have rare blood types, valuable ones, types that can keep certain people alive who would otherwise die." Something in his tone made the skin on my arms rise. "What aren't you telling me? Nothing yet. He doesn't work in speculation." He moved back toward the bed, "But when those results come back, we'll both know more. Until then you rest, you eat, you heal, and then you help me burn the group to ash properly this time." He smiled, and it was a predator's smile, beautiful and terrifying in exactly equal measure. "You give me names, and I give you revenge." Revenge, the word should have meant something fierce to me, should have lit something righteous in my chest. But I was too tired, too broken, too afraid that revenge was just another word for dying. I'm not brave. I said it as a whisper. "I'm not strong enough to fight them. You're alive." He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that his body heat reached me through the covers. "After 8 months of systematic torture designed to make you stop existing, you are still breathing and still fighting. That isn't weakness, Maya. That's steel." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to feel like the survivor he saw instead of the victim I knew I was. But believing things required energy I didn't have. "I'm tired." I admitted it like a confession. So tired. Then sleep. He stood, adjusting the Roman 4 drip with a familiarity that told me he'd done it before. "I'll be here when you wake." "Why?" He paused at the door, looked back at me with an expression I couldn't fully name. "Because ghosts shouldn't have to haunt the dark alone." Then he was gone, and I was alone with silk sheets and questions that felt more dangerous than any answer could possibly be. The next time I woke up, the curtains were open. Sunlight poured through floor, ceiling windows, and showed me a view of Manhattan that looked like a postcard. Central Park was visible from here, a rectangle of green in the middle of all that city. This wasn't just a penthouse. This was the kind of place that ended up in magazines with captions about how the other half lives. I sat up slowly and tested what my body could do. Still weak, but the fog had lifted. The fever that had been my constant companion felt muted. Manageable. My head was clear for the first time in weeks. The Roman 4 was gone from my arm, replaced by a small bandage over the spot. Someone had changed it while I slept. Someone had also changed my hospital gown for actual pajamas. Black silk, expensive, sized exactly right. The intimacy of that made my face warm, whose hands had dressed me. "Are you blushing?" I spun toward the voice. Kai sat in a chair by the window, so perfectly still, I'd completely missed him. He wore different clothes now, dark slacks, a black shirt open at the collar, showing more of the tattoos that seemed to cover most of him. His hair was damp, like he'd showered recently. He looked less like a mob boss and more like a dangerous piece of art. "I didn't see you there." I managed. I noticed. He stood and moved toward me, carrying something I hadn't registered. "A tray, doctor. Park said you can start on solid food. I made congee, rice porridge." He set the tray on the nightstand and began arranging pillows behind me with a gentleness that didn't match anything else about him. "Bland, easy to digest. Traditional sick food. You made it." I couldn't hide my surprise. His mouth twitched in something that might have been amusement. "Of course I can make congee. My grandmother would climb out of her grave and beat me with a wooden spoon if I couldn't." The image of this terrifying man being threatened by his grandmother loosened something tight in my chest, a reminder that somewhere inside all this danger was still a human being. He settled back in his chair, watching as I stared at the bowl. It smelled incredible. Ginger, sesame, something savory and warm and completely comforting in a way that made my stomach clench with desperate hunger. Dr. Park said small amounts. Kai reminded me. "No more than half the bowl, even if you're still hungry. Too much too fast will make you sick." I picked up the spoon. My hands shook. The first bite was heaven. Warm, soft, flavorful in that gentle way, that didn't overwhelm a system as broken as mine. I had to force myself not to inhale the whole thing. Kai watched in silence, not uncomfortable silence, something almost companionable, like he was content just to witness me surviving. The pajamas, I said between careful bites, who, I had my assistant buy them. She dressed you while doctor. Park was present. He said it like a simple fact. Your clothes from the station were destroyed. They were contaminated with your blood and infection. You'll need a full wardrobe. My assistant will take care of it. I can't afford. You're not being asked to pay. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. While you're under my protection, your needs are my responsibility. That includes clothes, medical care, food, and safety. This is not a discussion. Under his protection. The phrase should have felt like a leash. Instead, it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in months. How long, I asked, how long are you planning to keep me here? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. He stood and moved to the window, staring out at the city. The blood work came back this morning. My spoon froze halfway to my mouth. He was quiet for a long moment, looking at the city like it held something he needed before he could speak. When he finally did, his voice was carefully controlled. Your blood type is a B negative, Rh null variant. I frowned. That's impossible. I'm O positive. It's on all my medical records. Those records are wrong. Possibly fabricated. He turned to face me. Rh null is the rarest blood type in the world. Fewer than 50 confirmed cases globally. A universal donor for anyone with any Rh variant. Incredibly valuable to people with certain rare blood diseases. The room felt colder. What are you saying? I'm saying someone knew what you carried before you did. Someone tested you, discovered what was in your blood, and decided you were worth more as a resource than as a person. His hands curled into fists at his sides, and I'm saying that blood type is a family marker. Whoever has it passed it through generations. Through bloodlines, my mind was racing, so whoever needs my blood is likely related to me, or assumed they would have exclusive access to family donors. He moved closer until his presence filled my entire field of vision. Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Do you know anything about your biological parents? Were you adopted? Foster care? My hand trembled. I set the spoon down before I dropped it. My mother died when I was 3, overdose. I barely remember her. My father wasn't around. I grew up in foster care until I aged out at 18. Why does that matter? His jaw clenched, because that blood type doesn't just show up randomly. It's genetic and specific. And there's only one family in New York known to carry it. He paused, and I could see him weighing every word. Mine, the room tilted. What, my family, the Jian bloodline, we carry Rh null variants. His voice stayed level, but his eyes were intense. My father has it, I have it. My grandfather had it, and now you have it. I shook my head, trying to make the pieces fit in a way that made sense. That's impossible. I'm not Korean. I'm not your. What was her name? He cut me off. He pulled out his phone and typed rapidly. Elena Carter. She was. I tried to remember the few details I knew. Black, beautiful. That's what the social workers told me. I barely have any memories of her. And your father, I never knew. My mother never put a name on my birth certificate. Kai turned the phone screen toward me. A photograph, old and a little grainy but clear. A young Korean man in an expensive suit standing beside a black woman. She was beautiful, laughing, her hair in braids, her hand on his arm. She looked exactly like every photograph I'd ever seen of my mother. That's my great-uncle. Kai said it quietly, Jian Minho. He disappeared in New York in the 50s. He fell in love with a black woman in Harlem. Your great-grandmother, my family didn't approve. They erased him from the records, pretended he'd never existed. He paused. That was 3 generations ago, but the bloodline didn't end. It just went quiet until it reached you. I couldn't breathe. You're saying I'm blood. The word landed like a bomb going off in a small room. You are the last living descendant of that lost branch, Maya. We are strangers separated by decades and cultures, but you carry the genetic legacy my father needs. He isn't draining a stranger. He's harvesting a distant relative like a spare part. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the mattress, trying to anchor myself to something solid as my entire understanding of reality shifted underneath me. That's why they took me. I whispered it. Not because I was random, because I'm blood. Kai's voice went hard. You're Jian blood, rare, valuable. That's why I had to be the one to stabilize you that first night. Doctor. Park couldn't use the blood bank. I hooked my own vein to yours just to keep your heart beating. The perfect donor for the family patriarch who's dying of leukemia and needs regular transfusions to survive. He moved closer, and I could see rage barely contained underneath his control. My father took you. My family branded you. And I, his voice cracked just slightly, I have been paying the man who delivered you to them every single week. Pieces locked into place. Officer Reed, the group, the systematic draining. It wasn't random human trafficking. It was a family business, a dying patriarch keeping himself alive by consuming his own bloodline. I'm going to be sick. I barely got the words out before Kai moved, grabbing a small bin and holding it while I dry heaved. Nothing came up. My stomach was too empty, but the retching wouldn't stop. He rubbed my back with one hand, the touch surprisingly gentle for someone who talked about burning people to the ground for breakfast. When the spasms finally passed, he handed me water, small sips. I obeyed, tasted bile and horror. Your father. The chairman, he's been torturing family. Yes. Kai took the water glass back carefully. 2 years ago, I thought I'd killed him. Staged a coup, took control of the organization, and exiled him to South Korea with nothing. I thought he was too sick and too proud to survive it. He laughed. The sound was bitter and short. I underestimated his will to live. He came back, rebuilt his operation in secret. And when he needed donors, he took what he believed was his by-blood. Why didn't he just ask me? The question sounded ridiculous even as I said it. If I'm family, if he needed, because you are the anomaly. Kai's voice went cold. My father is obsessed with blood purity. He believes the RH null variant belongs only to the main line. Finding it in you, a black woman, 3 generations removed from the family name, offended his idea of order. He doesn't see you as family, Maya. He sees you as a genetic theft. Taking your blood isn't just survival to him. It's reclaiming what he believes belongs to the Jians. I thought I'd run out of tears months ago, but they came anyway. Hot and angry, spilling down my cheeks, Kai let me cry, his presence solid and unchanged beside the bed. I'm sorry, he said finally. I'm sorry you're caught in our family's sickness. I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. I'm sorry, his voice roughened, that my blood is the reason yours was stolen. Through the tears I looked at him. Really looked, saw the guilt carved into every line of his face, the rage burning underneath his control. The determination that felt almost violent in its intensity. What happens now? I asked. Now? He stood straightening to his full height. And for a moment, he looked exactly like what he was. A king in his own territory. A killer with a clear purpose. Now I call a family meeting. I introduce you as Minho's descendant, the rightful Jian heir, and I watch my father's face when he realizes I know exactly what he's been doing. And then, his smile was terrible and beautiful at the same time. Then I finish what I started 2 years ago. Properly this time, he moved toward the door, then stopped. There's a panic button on the nightstand. Press it if you need anything. My men are outside your door. You're safe here. Kai. He stopped at the sound of his name. Thank you for... I gestured vaguely at the room, the food, the care, for all of this. He looked back at me, and for just one moment, the dangerous man disappeared. Replaced by something achingly human. Your family, Maya. His voice went soft. We take care of our own. Even when that family failed you first, then he was gone, and I was alone with a truth that felt heavier than any cage I'd ever been in. I had been tortured by my own blood, and saved by it too. 3 days passed in the golden prison of Kai's penthouse. 3 days of careful meals supervised by Dr. Park. 3 days of healing, physical healing at least. The infection in my arm retreated under strong antibiotics. The fever broke completely. Color came back into my skin, and with it came strength in my muscles. But healing brought clarity, and clarity brought fear back in full force. I stood at the floor, to ceiling windows, and watched the city wake up below. 15 floors down, people moved like ants through the Manhattan streets, purposeful, oblivious, free. I pressed my palm against the glass, feeling its coolness, testing its solidity. Beautiful cages were still cages. Behind me, the door opened. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Kai's presence had become familiar over these days. The quiet confidence of his movements, the cedar and leather smell that came before him, the way the air itself seemed to shift when he entered a room. "You're up early," he observed, couldn't sleep. I kept my eyes on the street below. Is this how it's going to be? Beautiful room, good food, guards at my door. A prisoner treated well is still a prisoner. His reflection appeared in the glass beside mine. Sharp features made almost ghostly by the morning light. "You're not a prisoner, then I can leave." Silence. The kind that answered the question more honestly than any words could. I turned to face him. He wore a charcoal suit, tailored perfectly. It made him look less like a criminal and more like a CEO. But the tattoos showing above his collar and the cold calculation in his eyes told the real story. "That's what I thought." I said it flatly. "It's not about control." He moved closer, and I hated how my body responded to it. Pulse quickening, breath catching. I couldn't tell anymore if it was fear or something more complicated. "It's about survival. The moment you step outside this building, you become vulnerable again. The group will take you back, or worse. Worse than 8 months of being bled dry. Yes, the single word was absolute. My father knows I have you now. He knows I understand what he's been doing. That makes you more than a donor. You're proof, evidence of his crimes. Symbol of his weakness." Kai's jaw clenched. "He'll kill you rather than let me use you against him. A clean death if you're lucky. Slow if he's in a mood to be creative." The casual way he discussed my possible murder should have horrified me. Instead, it felt almost refreshing. Someone finally being honest about the danger I was actually in. "So what's the plan then?" I asked. "I stay here forever. You fight your family war while I watch from a golden tower." "The plan is you stay alive." His hand lifted, and I made myself not flinch as his fingers traced the air beside my bandaged cheek. "The plan is I dismantle the group piece by piece. Cut off my father's resources. Remove him from power permanently. Then you're free, truly free. How long will that take?" "As long as it takes." I pushed past him and started pacing the length of the room. "That's not good enough. I'm not a doll you put on a shelf while you play gangster. I stopped and turned to face him. "I'm a third-year medical student, or I was. I have knowledge and skills, and I could actually help you. You can help by staying safe. I can help by telling you everything I know about their operation." I moved toward him, pulled by something I couldn't explain. Anger, maybe, desperation, or that magnetic pull of shared purpose. "I've been inside their facility, Kai. I know the layout, the security, the staff. I know which cops are paid off, which doctors participate, which people look the other way. I'm not just a victim, I'm a witness." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe respect. "You remember all that? I'm a med student. We're trained to observe and catalog and remember details that might save lives someday." I held his gaze. "Let me help. Don't protect me into uselessness." He studied me for a long moment, those dark eyes searching for something. Then he nodded slowly. "Tell me about the facility." Relief flooded through me. Finally, a way to fight back. "It's underground beneath a building in Queens. Industrial area. abandoned looking from the surface. They enter through a delivery bay. The actual medical center is 2 floors down, clean, professional. Not some back alley operation. How many staff? 3 doctors that I saw regularly. Maybe a dozen nurses and techs. They rotate shifts. I closed my eyes and pulled up memories I'd been trying to bury. The lead doctor is a woman. Late 50s, goes by Dr. Yoon. She's efficient, clinical, treats everyone like livestock but with medical precision. Us? Kai's voice sharpened. There are others. At least 6 that I saw. All women, different ages, different backgrounds. All branded like me. The memory made my skin crawl. They keep us separated most of the time. Can't risk us organizing. But I saw them in the recovery room after donations. We'd lie there together, too weak to talk. Just existing in the same space. Names? Do you know any names? I shook my head. We weren't allowed to communicate. Any interaction earned punishment. But I remember faces. One girl maybe 19 years old. Another woman in her 40s with scars that suggested she'd been there a very long time. A teenager who couldn't have been more than 16. My voice cracked. They take anyone whose blood type matches what they need. Age doesn't matter. Consent doesn't matter. Just the blood. Kai's hands curled into fists at his sides. The cops, you mentioned cops. Officer Reid is the main transport. He picks me up from wherever I'm hiding, drives me to the facility, brings me back afterward. He threatened me, told me if I ran, he'd arrest me for anything he could make stick. No one was going to believe a homeless woman over a decorated detective. Reid, Kai pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. Detective Marcus Reid, Manhattan Precinct. On my payroll for 18 months. I've been paying him $5,000 a month for information on police investigations into my operations. He looked up, and his expression was carved from something colder than stone. I've been funding your torture. The guilt in his eyes was so raw it hurt to look at. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have done better research. I should have. He stopped himself. He's dead. The moment I find him, he's dead. The calm certainty of that should have shaken me. Instead, I felt something dark and small and shameful stir in my chest. The desire to see the person who terrified you finally be the one who's terrified. There are others. I kept going. Other cops who help with security at the facility. I don't have names, but I'd recognize faces. Uniforms, they're careful and professional. This isn't just ordinary corruption. It's organized and systematic. Kai moved to the window and stared out at the city with the focus of something picking its target. My father always had a talent for corrupting people. He finds the pressure point, debt, addiction, family trouble. He applies force until decent men become his tools. Reid didn't seem like a decent man to me. No, Kai agreed. Some people are just waiting for someone to give them permission to be what they already are. My father is very good at granting that permission. A knock at the door changed the energy of the whole room in an instant. Kai's entire presence shifted. The man who'd been talking with me disappeared and was replaced by something colder and more precise. Come, the door opened. A young man entered mid-20s, dressed in a dark suit that announced security from 10 feet away. His eyes swept the room the way someone trained for combat sweeps a room. Mr. Jian, we have a situation. Kai's expression didn't change, but I felt the tension in him spike like a current. Speak. Patrol spotted an NYPD cruiser making repeated passes of the building. 3 times in the last hour. Detective Marcus Reid is driving. The name hit me like being slapped. My breath stopped. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm. I stumbled backward, and my hip hit the edge of the bed. Reid, here. Rachel. Kai was beside me immediately, his hand firm on my shoulder. Look at me. Focus. But I couldn't. All I could see was Reid's face leaning into the back of his cruiser, his breath hot against my ear telling me what would happen if I tried to run. His hand on my arm as he dragged me into the facility, his indifferent expression as I begged and sobbed. He knows I'm here. My voice sounded disconnected from my body. He's coming for me. He'll take me back. No one is taking you anywhere. Kai's voice cut through the panic like a blade. His hands framed my face and forced me to look at him. Do you hear me? No one touches you. I don't care if he's wearing a badge. You are safe. You don't understand. He'll find a way. He always finds a way. He has the law, and I have something better. Kai released me and turned to his guard. Leo, bring Reed to me. Leo's eyebrows rose just a fraction, the tiniest crack in his composure. Alive. Alive for now. Kai's smile was a terrible thing. I want to have a conversation with the man who's been on my payroll while trafficking my family. Sir, if he's still in uniform. I don't care if he's standing in the middle of Times Square in full dress blues. Bring him to me, quietly if possible, violently if necessary. Leo nodded and left without another word. The door closed and silence wrapped around the room. I sank onto the edge of the bed, shaking. You're going to kill a cop? Every badge in the city will come after you. The system will. The system already looks the other way for worse. Kai knelt in front of me, bringing himself level with my eyes. Reed isn't here in any official capacity. He's here because my father sent him. He's not investigating anything. He's hunting, and that makes him something I don't have to worry about. What if you're wrong? What if? 3 passes in 1 hour. Kai's expression didn't waver. That's not patrol. That's surveillance. His hand covered mine where it gripped the sheets. He knows where you are because someone told him. My father's reach is longer than I thought, but that's about to change. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it just underlined how deep this all went, how many people were part of it, how vast the group's reach actually was. Your father, I said slowly. You keep talking about taking him down, but he's the chairman. He has resources, connections, power. How does one person fight all of that? Kai's smile went sharp. I'm not one person. I'm the psycho, the supreme boss. I have an entire organization at my command. Resources my father no longer controls. Connections he burned when he tried to have me killed 2 years ago. He stood and moved to a cabinet against the wall and opened it, pulling out a glass and a crystal decanter. My father made one critical mistake when he came back from exile. What was that? He poured 2 fingers of amber liquid. He forgot that loyalty isn't bought with fear alone. It's earned through respect, through strength, through vision. He took a sip, his throat moving as he swallowed. The men who follow me do so because I pulled this organization out of the shadow my father cast over it. I modernized it, legitimized where I could, made us powerful instead of just feared. My father wants to go back to the old ways. Brutal, medieval, like it's still the 1980s. He turned and leaned against the cabinet. The organization chose sides. They chose me, but the group is his own side project. A desperate old man's last effort to stay alive long enough to take back what he lost. It's funded off the books, staffed with people he bought or blackmailed. His eyes met mine. It's powerful, but it's not invincible. And now that I know it exists, I can take it apart. How? By removing every piece that holds it together. Reed is one piece. Dr. Yoon and her staff are others. The facility itself, the money supply. He took another drink. I cut off each resource until my father is completely isolated. Then I remove him permanently. The casual way he discussed killing his own father should have been the most disturbing thing I'd heard all week. But I'd learned enough about this world to understand, family or not. The chairman was a threat, and threats got eliminated. What do you need from me? I asked. He looked surprised. You've given me plenty already. The facility location. The staff, Reed's involvement, no. I stood and moved toward him with more confidence than I actually had. I mean, what do you need from me to help end this? I'm not sitting on the sidelines while you fight my battle. Maya, I'm a third-year medical student. I cut him off. I've done rotations in trauma surgery, emergency medicine, and forensic pathology. I know how to read medical records, identify controlled substances, trace pharmaceutical supply chains. If the group is running a medical operation, I can help you understand it, exploit it, and destroy it. He studied me for a long moment. weighing the risks, weighing the value. You understand what you're offering? He asked, this isn't school. This is war. People will die. Some of them will deserve it. Others will just be in the way. I've been a casualty for 8 months. I held his gaze. I'd rather be a soldier. Something shifted in his expression. Respect maybe, or recognition. He set down his glass and crossed the distance between us. This close I could see all the details I'd been cataloging without meaning to. The exact depth of his dark eyes, the scar through his eyebrow, the way the tattoos on his neck seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. You are not what I expected, he said it quietly. What did you expect? Broken, afraid, fragile? His hand lifted. And this time when he touched my face, his fingers actually made contact. Warm skin against the unbandaged side of my cheek. I am all of those things. My voice came out softer than I'd planned. But I'm also angry, and anger is better fuel than fear. Be careful with that anger. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I felt the touch everywhere. A current running through me that had nothing to do with terror, and everything to do with something far more dangerous. It burns hot, but fire consumes everything, including the person holding it. Then we'll burn together. The words hung between us, charged with a meaning I hadn't meant to put in them. His eyes went darker, pupils widening, and for a moment I thought he was going to close the distance, thought he was going to kiss me, thought he was going to blur every line between what we were. Instead, he stepped back, breaking the moment. When Leo brings Reed, I want you there. His voice was carefully controlled again. I want you to see him powerless, afraid, facing what he actually deserves. Will you be strong enough for that? I thought about Reed's hands on me, his voice in my ear, his complete indifference to everything I suffered. And I felt that anger Kai had warned me about burning bright and cold and absolute in my chest. I'll be strong enough, good. He moved toward the door again and paused. Maya, what you said about burning together? He looked back, and his expression was unreadable. Be careful making promises to men like me. We have a tendency to hold people to them. Then he was gone, and I was left alone with the ghost of his touch on my face and the knowledge that I just crossed a line I could never step back over. I was falling for the monster who'd saved me, and that might be more dangerous than anything the group could do to me. The call came 3 hours later. I was in the library, a room I discovered that morning. Dark wood and leather, bound books that smelled of paper and time. I was trying to distract myself from what was coming, from what I'd agreed to witness. The door opened. Leo stood there, his usually still face showing the faintest hairline crack of tension. Mr. Gian requests your presence. 3rd floor, now. I followed him through corridors I'd never seen, deeper into the penthouse's maze, like structure. The decor changed as we went, less refined, more utilitarian, concrete floors, exposed pipes. This was the skeleton beneath the beautiful skin of the building. We stopped at a reinforced steel door. Leo pressed his palm to the handle. It glowed blue, and the door opened with a pneumatic sound. The room beyond looked like something between a police interrogation room and a surgical theater. White tile walls. A drain in the center of the floor. A stainless steel table, and strapped to that table, still in his police uniform, was Detective Marcus Reed. He looked smaller than I remembered, less imposing, just a middle-aged man with thinning hair and the beginning of a gut. Sweating through his uniform shirt, Kai stood beside the table, completely relaxed, looking at Red the way someone might look at an interesting insect that had wandered somewhere it didn't belong. When he heard us enter, he turned. Maya, come here. My feet moved on their own, carrying me closer until I was standing beside Kai. Close enough to see Reed's face clearly. Close enough to watch his eyes widen with recognition when he saw me. You, Reed breathed it. You, watch your mouth. Kai's voice was soft, but Reed shut up instantly. Meyer is family. You speak to her with respect or you don't speak. Reed's eyes moved between us, calculating. I want a lawyer. I know my rights. You can't. You're not under arrest. Kai pulled a small knife from his pocket. The blade caught the harsh fluorescent light. This isn't a legal proceeding. This is a conversation. and you're going to tell me everything I want to know. Or he pressed the blade against Reed's thumb, not cutting, just promising. You're going to learn that there are things much worse than jail. I should have been horrified, should have demanded he stop, should have reminded him that torture was wrong, even when the person on the table absolutely deserved it. But I wasn't horrified. I watched Reed's face twist with fear, and I felt nothing, no sympathy, no mercy. Just a cold and terrible satisfaction that finally, he was the one who was scared, the facility in Queens. Kai continued as if discussing the weather. Tell me about it. I don't know what you're talking about. Reed's voice shook despite his attempt at defiance. I'm a cop. I don't. Kai pressed harder. A thin line of blood appeared. Reed screamed. Just a scratch, Kai said. Let me rephrase. Tell me about the facility, or we start with one finger. Then another, then I get creative. Okay, Reed was gasping, tears already on his face. The facility, it's in Long Island City. Beneath the old factory on the south end, the chairman runs it. I just transport the women, that's all. I drive them. I don't hurt anyone. You just drive. Kai's voice went arctic. You just transport kidnapped women to be systematically drained of blood. You just threaten them into silence. You just deliver them back to nothing and hope they're too afraid to tell anyone. He leaned in closer. That's not innocence, detective. That's complicity. I didn't have a choice. Reed's voice broke. The chairman had evidence on me, gambling debts, some things I did years ago. He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd destroy everything. My career, my family, everything I had. So you chose to destroy other people instead. Kai straightened and looked down at Reed with something that might have been contempt. Cowardice dressed up as necessity. How original. He turned to me. Maya, do you have any questions for Detective Reed? I stepped closer. I looked down at the man who had lived in my nightmares for 8 months, who had dragged me to that facility. Threatened me, treated me like cargo, the other girls. I said it steady. Where do you take them after donations? Reed's eyes slid away. Look at her when she speaks. Kai's voice cracked like a whip. An answer honestly. Or we continue our previous conversation about fingers. Back to wherever they're staying, Reed said quickly. The tunnels, shelters, some of them have jobs. We drop them off. Tell them when to be ready for the next pickup. And if they refuse, Reed swallowed, we make sure they understand refusal isn't an option. How? I pushed. How do you make sure? His silence answered for him. The bruises I'd seen on the other girls. The way some of them flinched at shadows and doorways. Violence as persuasion. One more question. I kept my voice level. If I'd truly run, left the state? What would have happened? Reed laughed. It was short and bitter. You think you could have run? The chairman has people everywhere. Cops, federal agents, border patrol. You wouldn't have made it out of New York before someone picked you up. He met my eyes. There was never any escape. You were always his. The casualness of it, the certainty. It made my blood go cold. He was probably right. Without Kai, I would have been trapped in that cycle until my body simply gave out. Thank you, Detective. Kai's hand settled on my lower back, warm through the thin fabric of my shirt. You've been very helpful, so I can go. Hope lit up in Reed's eyes for just a moment. Absolutely not. Kai smiled, and it was the coldest thing I had ever seen in my life. Death is release. I'm going to make sure you live long enough to regret every single choice that brought you here. He guided me toward the door, his hand steady at my back. As we stepped into the hallway, I heard Reed begin to sob behind the sealed door, the broken sound of a man who had finally met someone more powerful than everything that had been protecting him. Kai, are you all right? He asked it as soon as the door was sealed between us and Reed's crying. I nodded, though I wasn't entirely sure it was true. I thought seeing him afraid would feel like justice. I leaned against the concrete wall and suddenly felt all the weight of the day at once. But it doesn't change what happened, doesn't undo any of it. Maybe not. Kai's hand came up to cup my jaw, tilting my face toward him. But you survived long enough for me to find you. That takes something most people simply don't have. Before I could respond, an alarm tore through the building. Red lights strobed in the hallways. The sound was deafening. A pulsing wail that made my teeth ache in my jaw. Kai's entire presence changed in an instant. The man who'd been almost gentle disappeared. The warrior I'd first seen in the station stood in his place. He grabbed my arm and pulled me away from the wall. "What's happening?" I shouted over the alarm. "Breach." He was already moving, dragging me toward the stairs. "Someone is inside the building." Who? Only one group would be bold enough. His jaw was set, his eyes already calculating. "My father knows where you are, and he's decided that subtle doesn't work anymore." We hit the stairs at a run. Leo materialized from somewhere and fell in beside us, flanked by 3 other men in dark suits, all drawing weapons with the ease of people who'd done it 1,000 times before. Gunfire echoed from above, sharp cracks that made my heart slam inside my chest. "How many?" Kai asked Leo without slowing. "At least a dozen. Professional. They came up through the parking garage. Bypassed security like they had the codes. This was planned. The chairman had access codes when this building was his." Kai cursed in Korean under his breath. I should have changed every single one. My arrogance. We burst through a door into a hallway I recognized as close to my room. The lights flickered, emergency backups kicking in. More gunfire, closer. Kai shoved me toward Leo. "Get her to the panic room. Seal it. Don't open it for anyone but me. Sir, I need her safe." Kai's voice was sharp. "Everything else is secondary. Go." Leo grabbed my arm and pulled me away. I tried to resist, tried to reach for Kai. "Wait, you can't," but he was already gone. Running toward the sound of combat with the calm of someone who had made peace with death a long time ago. Leo dragged me through corridors that turned and twisted, each step taking us deeper into the heart of the penthouse. We passed men on the floor, men in dark tactical gear bleeding on expensive carpet, Gunwoo's people buying us seconds with their lives. A figure appeared ahead, tactical vest, assault rifle raised. Leo shoved me behind him and fired 3 times. The figure dropped. "Keep moving." Leo pulled me forward without pausing. We reached a door that looked like every other door. Dark wood, no markings. But when Leo pressed his palm to the handle, it glowed blue, reading his print, and the door opened to show a room built for exactly this moment. Small, reinforced walls, monitors showing security feeds from throughout the building, supplies along every wall. Water, food, medical kits, a panic room, inside. Leo started to follow me in, then jerked backward. A spray of blood hit the air. He'd been shot from behind. I screamed and reached for him, but he shoved me hard. I fell backward into the panic room, and he slammed the door shut between us. Through the small, reinforced window, I watched him turn to face whoever had shot him. Still firing, even as blood ran from the wound in his shoulder. The door sealed with a sound like a bank vault locking. Bulletproof, bombproof, sealed from the inside. No way to open it from out there. Safe, I was safe. But Kai was out there fighting his father's army. Leo was bleeding in the hallway, and I was locked in a box. Completely useless, I moved to the monitors and cycled frantically through camera feeds. The penthouse was a war zone. Bodies everywhere, bullet holes in walls, smoke from what looked like grenades. Then I found him. Kai moved through the chaos like death itself walking. He'd shed his jacket. His white shirt was almost entirely red now. His blood, or someone else's, I couldn't tell. He fought with brutal efficiency, dropping people with precise shots, moving constantly, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. But there were so many of them. For every one he put down, 2 more appeared from somewhere. I watched him take cover behind an overturned couch. Reload, his movements were slowing, getting labored. He was tiring. Then something on another monitor caught my eye. A thermal readout, standard security feature tracking heat signatures in the building. The panic room was designed to monitor everyone's body heat to track threats. Kai's heat signature was wrong. Too hot. Fever hot and getting hotter. No, I cycled to the medical monitors. Another panic room feature, tracking the vital signs of the building's occupants through embedded chips. Kai's vitals appeared on the screen. Heart rate 140, 2 beats per minute. elevated but manageable for someone in a fight. Blood pressure 90, 8/60. Too low, too low. Temperature 103.4 degrees. Fever range, blood oxygen 80. 9% and dropping, he was crashing. Something was wrong with him beyond the normal stress of fighting for his life. His body was failing underneath the adrenaline. Then I remembered, 3 days ago, in this building. The transfusion, he had given me his blood, weakened himself to keep me from sepsis, and I had been so focused on my own recovery that I hadn't thought once about his. You couldn't give that much blood and bounce back in 3 days. The body needed weeks to replace what was lost. Red blood cells, plasma, clotting factors, all of it took time to rebuild, time Kai hadn't had before his father's men arrived. He was fighting on an empty tank, his body was consuming itself to stay functional, hypovolemic shock. The medical diagnosis arrived automatically, the training kicking in even through the panic. He was going into shock from blood loss and stress combined. If he didn't get a transfusion soon, his organs would start shutting down one by one. And the only person in this entire building with compatible blood was locked in a panic room he had built specifically to keep me from danger. I ran to the door, pounding on the reinforced steel. Let me out. Open the door. But it was designed never to open from outside. Designed not to respond to screaming or begging. Designed to keep its occupants safe regardless of what they wanted. I was going to watch him die on these monitors because he had saved my life first. The irony was so brutal, it almost felt deliberate. I cycled through every camera frantically, trying to find anyone who could reach him, but Kai's people were pinned or down. Leo had collapsed in the hallway outside my door, motionless. There was no one coming to help him. On the main monitor, Kai dropped to one knee. He fired again, the recoil nearly knocking him all the way down. His hand went to his side and came away red. He'd been shot, and his body didn't have enough blood left to handle a wound on top of everything else. I looked around the panic room with desperate eyes. Medical supplies, food, water, monitors, everything except what I actually needed. A way out, then I saw it, a small panel beneath the main monitor, emergency medical override. I ripped it open. Inside was a keypad and a biometric scanner. Instructions in English underneath. In case of medical emergency requiring evacuation of protected occupant, authorized medical personnel may override lockdown. Scan ID. Enter medical code. Door will unseal for 60 seconds, but I wasn't authorized medical personnel. I was a med student with no credentials, and no ID to scan, and no code to enter. I looked back at the monitors. Kai had fallen. He was on the ground now, still firing, but barely moving. His heat signature was dimming on the thermal display. He was dying because he had saved me, because he had given me his blood without thinking about what would happen if he needed it back. My eyes dropped to the medical supplies, Roman IV bags, whole blood units labeled with his blood type, AB negative. Rh null variant, his own blood stored for exactly this kind of emergency. But the blood was in here, and he was out there dying. Unless I looked at my arm, at the faint marks from days of Roman IV lines, at the veins that carried blood he had given me. Blood his body had made, blood that matched his type exactly because it had come from him. I had been a donor for 8 months. I knew exactly how to set up a transfusion, how to find a vein, how to prevent infection, how to keep someone alive with nothing but tubes and gravity and sheer stubborn will. But first I needed to get to him. I turned back to the biometric scanner and pressed my palm to it. Access denied. Unknown user. I tried again. Searched the panel for any emergency bypass, any maintenance code. Anything at all. Nothing. On the monitor, Kai had stopped moving. His eyes were closed, his chest barely rising. Seconds from going under, minutes from gone, and I was locked in a room he had built to protect me so well it might kill him. I screamed, pure rage and helplessness tearing from my throat. My fists slammed into the reinforced glass of the door's window. Once, twice, blood appeared on my knuckles, but the glass didn't so much as scratch. I was going to lose him. After everything, after he had saved me and protected me and given me something I hadn't had in so long, I'd forgotten the name for it. I was going to watch him die unless I did something he would absolutely not approve of. Something dangerous and possibly stupid and completely against everything he'd ordered me to do. I grabbed the medical supplies, Roman 4 bags, lines, alcohol swabs, tape, shoved them into a bag along with water and gauze. Then I went back to the door panel. The instructions said the door would unseal for 60 seconds during a medical emergency override. What they didn't say was what would trigger that override when no authorized personnel were present. But I'd spent enough time in hospitals. Some systems had automatic overrides based on the occupant's biometrics. Heart attack, stroke, anaphylaxis. If the panic room detected the person inside was in medical distress, it would unseal to let emergency services in. I couldn't fake a heart attack, but I could manipulate a blood pressure reading. I grabbed an Roman 4 needle from the medical supplies, placed it against the vein in my inner elbow, the big one, the one they always use when drawing large amounts. If I placed it right, I could drop my pressure fast enough to trigger the sensors. The panic room would register hemorrhaging, and it would open. If I placed it wrong, I would bleed out in this sealed room, and no one would find me until it was too late for both of us. I looked at the monitor one more time. Kai's heat signature was fading. There was no choice. There had never really been a choice. I pressed the needle in and pushed. Blood welled up, spilled over my arm, dripped onto the floor. I dropped the needle and pressed my palm over the puncture, applying pressure, but not enough to stop the flow entirely. Pain exploded up my arm. My vision swam. I slid down the wall and kept my arm elevated to speed the drop. "Come on." I whispered it at the room's sensors. "Come on." The monitors began to shift. My heart rate spiked. Blood pressure dropped. Warning lights lit up on the control panel. Occupant medical emergency detected. Blood pressure critical. Initiating emergency override. The door hissed. Locks disengaged. Emergency personnel please respond. Door unsealing. The door opened. I grabbed the medical bag with my free hand and stumbled into the hallway. Leo was still there, unconscious, blood pooling underneath him. I wanted to stop, but Kai's situation was worse. I ran. Blood dripped from my arm, leaving a trail behind me, but I couldn't stop. Every second mattered. The gunfire had stopped. Either Kai's people had won, or there was no one left alive to shoot. I found him in what had been the living room. The beautiful space was destroyed. Furniture flipped. Bullet holes everywhere. Blood on the marble floors. He was on his back, perfectly still, his white shirt almost entirely red now, his skin pale, lips tinged faintly blue. Not breathing well, not breathing at all. I dropped beside him and pressed my fingers to his neck. A pulse. Thready and weak, but there, still alive, barely. "Kai." I shook him. "Stay with me. Please stay with me." His eyes fluttered, focused on me with effort. "Maya." His voice was barely a sound. "Panic room. Why aren't you in the—" "Shut up." I was already tearing open his shirt, looking for the wound, found it. Left side just below his ribs. "Bleeding steadily. You're in hypovolemic shock. You need blood right now. No hospitals." He tried to push my hands away. "Can't. I'm not taking you to a hospital." I ripped open the Roman 4 supplies with my teeth. "I'm giving you mine." Understanding moved through his eyes. "No. Your arm. You're bleeding. You can't." I tied the tourniquet around my upper arm with one hand and my teeth. Found the vein, inserted the needle. My hands shook, but they held. Blood flowed into the tubing, dark red and healthy. His blood that I'd been carrying in my veins for days. Then I found his vein and inserted the second needle and connected the line. His blood given back to him. A closed loop of survival. This is insane. His voice was barely there. "You'll kill yourself. You gave me your blood when I needed it." I pressed gauze to his wound and applied pressure. "Now I'm giving it back. Fair trade." His hand found mine where it held the gauze against his side. "You're impossible." "You're one to talk." I kept watching the blood moving through the clear tube from my arm to his. "You walked into a fight 3 days after donating a full pint." What exactly did you think was going to happen? I thought. He coughed and blood touched the corner of his mouth. I'd win faster. Despite everything, I laughed. It came out half hysterical. You're dying and you're making jokes. If I'm dying, his fingers tightened on mine. At least I get to look at you while I do it. The words hit something in my chest. Something I'd been working very hard to ignore since he'd caught me in the station. Since he'd made me soup and looked at my branded face with fury instead of pity. Since he'd called me family and meant every syllable. You're not dying. I said it firm and loud. I won't let you. His eyes were starting to lose focus. The transfusion was working, but not fast enough. He needed more blood than I could safely give him. Needed real treatment. Needed Maya. His voice was going. Promise me if I don't. No. I pressed harder on the wound. Don't you dare leave me in this. Promise me you'll finish it. Destroy the group, free the others. His breathing was shallow now. Promise me, I promise. Tears blurred everything in front of me, but you're going to be there to help me. You don't get to save me and then disappear. That's not how this works. How does it work? His eyes stayed on mine. And despite the pain and the fading, something almost tender lived in his gaze. You live. My voice cracked completely. You survive this, and then we burn it all down together, the way you promised together. He repeated it. His eyes closed, his breathing steadied slightly. The transfusion was working. His body was fighting. I just needed to keep him stable until help arrived. I looked around the destroyed room. Where were his people? Then I heard it, footsteps, multiple sets, heavy boots on marble floors. I grabbed Kai's gun from where it had fallen beside him. I had never fired a weapon in my life, but I'd watched enough to know the basics. Point, pull, protect. The footsteps got closer. I raised the gun toward the doorway with shaking hands, but the figure that appeared in the doorway wasn't wearing tactical gear. Just a dark suit, torn and rumpled, blood on his sleeve, but standing upright and alive. Leo, he took in the scene without a word. Me with an Roman 4 line running from my arm to Kai's. The gun in my free hand. Blood everywhere. The building is secure. He said it quietly. The chairman's men are dead or captured. I lowered the gun. Kai needs a doctor. He's been shot and he's in hypovolemic shock. I'm transfusing, but it isn't enough. He needs real medical care right now. Leo already had his phone out. Dr. Park is on his way. 5 minutes. He moved closer and assessed Kai with professional calm. You saved his life. He saved mine first. I kept pressure on the wound. This just makes us even. No. Leo's voice was quiet. This makes you family, true family, the kind that bleeds for each other. I looked at Kai's pale face. At the tube, connecting my blood to his veins. At the way, his fingers still held mine, even in unconsciousness. Family, maybe Leo was right. Maybe I'd found something in this violent world that I'd never had before. A reason to fight, a reason to survive, a reason to burn down everyone who'd ever hurt us and stand in the ashes when it was done. Dr. Park arrived in a controlled whirlwind of efficiency. He took one look at my improvised transfusion and gave a single approving nod before setting up proper equipment. You may have just saved his life, he said while he worked, and possibly cost yourself yours in the process. How much have you given him? I looked at the bag I'd been tracking, about half a pint. Not enough to be dangerous by itself. Combined with your earlier wound, he nodded at my arm where I'd used the needle to trigger the override. You're looking at roughly a full pint total. You're going to be weak, dizzy, possibly unconscious within the hour. I'll manage, you'll rest, he corrected without looking up. The moment I stabilize, Mr. Gian, you are going on Roman 4 fluids and bed rest. I won't hear a word about it. I didn't have the energy to argue. Now that the adrenaline was leaving, I could feel it, the weakness crawling through my limbs. The gray edges returning to my vision, the trembling in my hands against Kai's wound. I'd given him what he'd given me. Blood for blood, life for life, and I would do it again without a second's hesitation. Because somewhere between being caught and being saved, between monster and man, Kai Jian had become mine to protect too. even if it cost me everything. The next time I woke, it was to movement, not the gentle sway of lying in bed. The vibration and rumble of a vehicle moving. My eyes opened to dim light, the interior of an armored SUV. Medical equipment beeping softly beside me, and Roman 4 line in my arm. Kai sat across from me, pale but alive, awake, watching me with dark eyes that held something I couldn't quite name. You're supposed to be resting. I managed, my voice rough, so are you. His smile was faint but real. Yet here we are, both of us, terrible at following instructions. I tried to sit up, the world tilted hard, and his hand shot out and steadied me. Easy, you lost a significant amount of blood. Dr. Park wanted to keep you sedated for the trip, but he paused. I wanted you awake. Wanted you to know what was happening. What is happening? I looked around. Leo was driving. I could see him through the partition. We were on a highway. Trees moving fast in the dark outside. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Kai's hand stayed on my shoulder. Warm and steady, the penthouse is compromised. My father knew the security codes, the layout, all of it. It isn't defensible anymore. So we're running, we're regrouping. His jaw tightened, and I'm taking you to the one fortress designed to keep everyone out. Even him, a place built during the Cold War, designed to withstand nuclear strikes and a siege, the Iron Vault. The name sat heavy in the air. What is it? A bunker upstate, buried under 300 feet of solid rock. My grandfather built it in the 60s when he first came to this country, paranoid about government raids and old family enemies. Kai settled back in his seat, and I could see the effort even that small movement cost him. It has its own power supply, its own water source, enough supplies for months. Once we're inside, nothing can touch us. What about your people? Leo is with us. Dr. Park will meet us there. The rest of my organization is scattered, going to safe locations. Securing assets, preparing for a real war. His eyes met mine. My father's attack on the penthouse was a declaration. No more shadows, no more quiet. This is open conflict now. I processed that, my mind still sluggish from blood loss. And the girls from the group, the other women, Leo's people are extracting them as we speak. Every location Red gave us. Every facility he knew about. By morning, the group will have no donors left. His voice hardened, and without donors, my father has no way to keep himself alive. His leukemia will kill him in weeks. So we wait him out. Let him die slowly. Kai's expression was grim. Though I'd prefer a more direct approach. But first, you and I both need to heal, and the vault is the only place secure enough to do that. The car turned off the highway and took smaller roads that wound through dense dark forest. The city lights had long since disappeared. Tell me about it, I said, trying to stay awake against the pull of exhaustion. The vault. Kai's expression softened slightly. It's Cold War paranoia made out of concrete, but it's self-sufficient, an underground greenhouse, water from an aquifer below. Communications equipment, a full medical bay, everything needed to survive indefinitely underground. He paused. My grandfather used to take me there as a child, trained me in those hallways, taught me to shoot in the firing range. It was his fortress, his legacy, but I changed all the biometrics 2 years ago, and now it's yours. My home, he corrected himself gently but firmly, your Jian family, that makes it yours too, family. The word still felt borrowed from someone else's life. For so long I had been alone, no parents, no relatives. Just me against everything. And now this man was offering not just protection, but belonging. A place in a bloodline that came with violence and power and danger. But also with something I'd never had, people who fought for me. The car slowed and turned onto what looked like an old service road. Trees pressed in from both sides, branches scraping the hull. Then we stopped. Leo got out and I heard him working outside. The sound of something massive moving. Metal on metal. A hidden entrance being opened. The car moved forward again and started descending. The angle steep enough that I had to grip my seat. Down and down into the earth itself, the temperature dropped. The air took on that underground quality, still and heavy, untouched by wind or weather. Finally we stopped. Leo opened the door and I saw where we were. A massive space carved from living rock. Concrete reinforcements everywhere. Heavy blast doors that looked like they belonged on a military installation. Generator lights flickered on one by one, illuminating a complex that seemed to go on forever in every direction. Corridors branching off into distance. Storage areas packed with supplies. Living quarters visible through open doorways. Welcome to the Iron Vault. Kai said it quietly. Leo helped me out, supporting my weight when my legs proved shakier than I'd expected. Kai emerged more slowly, each movement careful and deliberate, protecting the wound in his side. We were both wounded, both weak, two broken people retreating to a fortress built to survive the end of the world. The medical bay is this way, Leo said, guiding us down a corridor. Dr. Park should arrive within the hour. I'll get you both settled. The medical bay was impressive for something buried under hundreds of feet of rock. A fully equipped surgical space, monitoring equipment, pharmaceutical storage, 2 hospital beds with fresh sheets. Someone had prepared it recently. Power already humming through everything. I sank onto one bed with something close to gratitude. The transfusion bag was nearly empty. Dr. Park had been slowly replacing what I'd lost, but I still felt hollowed out, like I was running on the very last of whatever reserves I had. Kai took the bed beside mine, and for a long moment we just existed there. 2 survivors, bloodied but breathing, hidden beneath the earth. Thank you, he said it quietly, for what you did. Coming after me, giving me your blood. You could have stayed safe in that room. You would have died. Yes, but you would have lived. His eyes held mine. Most people would have chosen themselves. I'm not most people. I met his gaze without looking away. And you're not just anyone. I stopped, not sure how to finish the sentence. What was he to me exactly? Savior, family, something more complicated than either word could hold. I know. He said it softly, saving me from having to explain. I know. Leo came back with water and protein bars. Eat, both of you, Dr. Park's orders until he arrives. We obeyed, too tired to resist anything. The food was bland and necessary, and my body received it gratefully. I was halfway through my second bar when Kai turned toward the medical cabinet, rummaging through it. I heard the snap of a glass vial, the hiss of a syringe. But before I could ask what he was taking for the pain, the lights went out. Total darkness, the kind that only exists underground where not a single photon from the surface can find its way down. The medical equipment died mid-beep. The gentle hum of the generators cut off like someone had thrown a switch. Leo, Kai's voice was sharp in the sudden silence. I'm here. Leo's voice came from somewhere nearby. Don't move, let me check. Then a new light appeared, dim red emergency lighting. It cast everything in blood. Colored shadows turning the medical bay into something from a nightmare. Through the open doorway, I heard something that turned my blood cold. Slow, deliberate footsteps, multiple sets. Getting closer. We have company. Leo's voice went tight. The main entrance has been sealed from inside. We're locked in. That's not possible. Kai said it low. The access codes were mine. First boy. The voice came from the doorway. Old, scraped rough with age and sickness, but carrying an authority that needed no volume to fill the room. A figure appeared in the red emergency light, skeletal thin, leaning on a cane, attached to a portable oxygen tank that wheezed with each breath. But his eyes were sharp and cruel and full of something that looked like triumph. The chairman. Kai's father, the man who had hunted my bloodline across a century. Hello, son, the chairman said it like he owned every inch of the air. Welcome home. Behind him, more figures appeared in the doorway, armed men, not tactical gear, street clothes. The kind of muscle that works in shadows rather than on battlefields. We were sealed in a bunker with the man who had ordered my torture. With nowhere to run and no way out, the Iron Vault, Kai's ultimate fortress, had become a trap, and the chairman had come to bury us in it. The chairman looked like death that had learned to walk around, not the poetic kind, the clinical medical kind. His skin had the translucent quality of paper, stretched over bone too tightly. liver spots mapped across his skull like old geography. The oxygen tank wheezed beside him, each breath a labored rattle that echoed in the red emergency light. But his eyes, those remained sharp, predatory, the eyes of a man who had built an empire out of other people's suffering and saw absolutely no reason to stop. You always were sentimental, Kai. The chairman's voice scraped like rust on old metal. Bringing the vessel here to my fortress. Did you really think I wouldn't find you? Kai moved or tried to. His hand went to his side where the bullet wound hadn't closed and where he'd given too much blood too recently. His body betrayed him, a sway that he couldn't fully hide. This was never your fortress. Kai's voice stayed level despite his pallor. You lost it when you tried to have me killed. I lost nothing. The chairman tapped his cane against the concrete floor. I simply waited, watched you play at being the boss while I rebuilt in the shadows. And when I needed donors, his gaze slid slowly to me, clinical and entirely without warmth. I took what belonged to me by blood. The possessiveness in those words made my skin feel wrong on my body. I wasn't a person to him, never had been. Just a genetic resource. A walking blood bank that happened to carry his family's rare variant. She's not yours. Kai stepped between us, blocking his father's line of sight. She's under my protection. The chairman let out a wet, rattling laugh. You can barely stand, boy. That transfusion you gave her weakened you. And now you're in my bunker, surrounded by my people, with absolutely nowhere to go. He leaned forward, the oxygen tube swaying with the movement. How exactly do you plan to protect anyone? The armed men behind him shifted. 6 of them, weapons drawn but not yet aimed. They watched Kai the way you'd watch a wounded tiger. Dangerous even when dying. I'm offering you a choice. The chairman's tone turned almost reasonable. Give me the girl. Let me take what I need. You walk away. Live to rebuild. Fight another day. And if I refuse, then you both die slowly. I'll drain her in front of you. Then I'll connect you and take everything, every drop, while you watch her go cold. His smile was a skeleton's smile. I prefer efficiency, but I'm willing to get creative for a disobedient son. The temperature in the bunker dropped another 10 degrees in my imagination. I felt Kai's hand find mine, his fingers wrapping around my wrist, not possessive, grounding, like he needed to feel my pulse to remember what he was fighting for. There's a third option. Kai said it quietly. The chairman raised one eyebrow. Take me instead. The words landed like stones in still water. No, I lurched forward, but Leo's hand caught my shoulder and held me. Kai, no, I'm healthy enough, stronger than her. Kai still didn't look at me. My blood is undiluted, better quality than hers. You said it yourself. Son's blood is more potent than some distant branch. The chairman studied him. I could see the calculation running behind those sharp old eyes. Weighing value, measuring options, she goes free. Kai continued, unharmed. You give her money, documents, whatever she needs to disappear completely. In exchange you get me, full access, as much blood as you need. Kai, don't, my voice cracked, don't do this. He crossed to me in 2 strides despite his weakness, his hands framing my face, his voice dropping to something only I could hear. Listen to me, I've lived with blood on my hands, deaths I ordered, things I can't undo but you, his forehead pressed to mine. You're still good, you deserve a life that's actually yours, not without you. Tears burned, I'm not going to sit here and watch you die for me. You survived because you're stronger than any of us. His lips brushed my temple, not quite a kiss, close enough to feel like goodbye. Now prove it, live. He whispered something then, just barely. 2 words in Korean I didn't know, but the way he said them, like a prayer and a promise and a confession all at once, made something in my chest fracture cleanly. Then he turned back to his father. Do we have a deal? The old man smiled. We have a deal. Kai walked to the medical chair in the center of the room. The same kind of chair that had held me prisoner for months. He sat down, extended both arms across the rests. No restraints needed. His voice was steady. I won't fight. The chairman gestured to one of his men. A thin man with a medical bag who moved with practiced clinical efficiency. not muscle, a trained professional. I wondered how many times he had done exactly this before. I tried to go to Kai, tried to run to him. Leo held me back, his grip iron even through his own injuries. Let her watch, the chairman said it like he was offering me a gift. Let her see what sacrifice looks like. The medic worked quickly, needles into both of Kai's arms. Roman 4 lines connecting him to bags, then to a machine, then to the chairman's portable transfusion setup mounted on his wheelchair. A closed loop. Father feeding on son. Kai's eyes found mine across the room. He didn't look afraid. He didn't look resigned. He looked peaceful, like a man who had finally found something like absolution for sins he'd been carrying too long. I mouthed the words, "Don't leave me." He smiled, that same devastating smile that had first caught my attention in the middle of that crowded station, and mouthed back, "Never." Then the chairman gave the order. The machine activated, and Kai's blood began to flow. The sound of it was hypnotic in the worst possible way. The soft whir of the transfusion pump, the steady drip of blood moving through clear tubing. Each heartbeat pushing life out of Kai's body and into his father's. I watched the chairman's color improve almost immediately. His skin warmed, his breathing steadied. The oxygen tank quieted as his lungs remembered how to do their job properly. Kai's blood was medicine, liquid salvation for a dying man, and it was killing the man I couldn't finish that thought. Couldn't name what had grown between us in days that felt like entire lifetimes. But watching his life drain away from him, I felt it like a wound that existed somewhere words didn't reach. Magnificent. The chairman closed his eyes. I can feel it already. Strength, clarity. This is what I've been missing. Not that diluted blood from the girl, pure Gian blood, legacy blood. Kai's lips were already losing color, his chest rising and falling too quickly, his body trying to compensate for what was being taken. But he stayed silent, eyes on me, holding nothing back. "You should be grateful," the chairman continued, his voice stronger now with every passing minute. "Your death has purpose. You're giving your father life. There's honor in that." Honor? Kai's voice was quiet but cut straight through the room. "Is that what we're calling it? I call it survival." The chairman opened his eyes. "I built this empire. I bled for it. I won't surrender it to death or to an ungrateful son who confuses mercy for strength." "Mercy isn't weakness." Kai's head listed slightly. He was fading in real time and I could see it. "You taught me to be ruthless. But you never taught me when to stop, because there is no stopping, not for men like us." The chairman leaned forward. "Power is maintained through strength, through taking what you need without apology. You were too soft, too willing to modernize, to legitimize. You made us weak. I made us sustainable." Kai's breathing was labored now. "Your way was dying. I saved us by showing respect to people you'd throw away, by granting mercy instead of." The chairman coughed once, then again. His hand went to his throat. His eyes went wide. The coughing got harder. Blood appeared at his lips. His body convulsed, not gradually, violently, like something had detonated inside him. And Kai smiled. It was terrible, and it was beautiful. The smile of someone who had just won by appearing to lose everything. What? The chairman tried to speak, but his throat was already tightening. "What did you? A massive dose?" Kai said it dreamily. "Injected it before we walked in here. The doctor will find the needle mark eventually." His smile widened. "You're not the only one who knows how to work with blood, Father." Horror and understanding arrived in me at the same exact moment. The whispered Korean words, poison chalice, he had made himself toxic, a gift that destroyed the one who took it. "You killed us both." The chairman was seizing now, his body rejecting the blood it had been so desperate for. "You insane, not insane." Kai's eyes were closing, practical. "You taught me that family is everything. So I'm taking you with me. The Gian bloodline ends here with us. No more monsters, Kai." I broke free from Leo's grip. Running to him, "Why would you? What did you do?" His hand found mine, squeezed it, barely, couldn't let him have you. His voice was barely sound anymore. "This way you're free, all of you, all the girls. He's the head of the group." With him gone, you're dying. Tears poured down my face. You poisoned yourself. Vitamin K, he whispered. In the medical supplies, antidote, but you'll need to work fast. I don't know how much time. The chairman collapsed. His men rushed to him, but I could see from across the room it was already too late. His blood was too thin to clot. He was bleeding from everywhere at once. The compound in Kai's blood was eating him alive, and Kai was next. Where? I grabbed his face and forced him to look at me. Where are the supplies? Crash cart? Yellow cabinet? His eyes were rolling back. No, I slapped him. Not hard, just sharp enough. Stay with me. Kai, look at me. His eyes came back, barely focused. I spun to Leo, the medical supplies, yellow cabinet now, but Leo had gone still. His face pale. He was staring at something behind me. I turned. Officer Raid stood in the doorway, armed. He'd been here the entire time. One of the chairman's shadows. For a single heartbeat, the old conditioning slammed back into place. Freeze, be invisible. Don't make eye contact. Don't breathe too loud. I saw the man who had grabbed me by the hair and shoved me into vans, who had laughed on the drive to the facility, who had reduced my entire existence down to a line item in someone else's budget. He looked at the dying chairman, then at Kai, then at me, and his expression wasn't fear. It was annoyance. You, he sneered. He stepped over a body to come toward me. You ruined everything, the deal, my retirement. Everything for a piece of disposable trash. He raised his weapon, aiming not at me, at Kai's body on the chair. I guess I'll salvage what I can from this mess. Something inside me split. The fear didn't vanish, it crystallized. I looked at Kai, dying because he'd refused to let me be something that could be thrown away, and I realized with absolute clarity that I was done being a ghost. Ghosts didn't bleed, ghosts didn't fight, but I did. I didn't think about odds or training or any of it. I looked at the holster of the fallen guard 3 feet from me. No, I said it out loud. Reed's finger tightened. I dove, my hand closed around the guard's weapon, just as Reed fired. The impact hit my shoulder like a truck. White-hot and immediate. The force spun me around and slammed me into the concrete floor. My vision went gray. But I did not let go of the gun. I rolled onto my back, raised the weapon with both hands shaking. Reed was staring at me. Shock on his face, he hadn't expected the cargo to fight back. I looked at him. I wanted him to actually see me. Not the girl in his rearview mirror. Not the investment, me. I am not yours. I said it loud and clear. And I pulled the trigger. The recoil jarred my wounded shoulder. I didn't stop. The first shot hit him in the chest. He staggered. The second hit him in the stomach. He doubled forward. The third was for every night I had prayed for it to just be over. It took him in the throat. Reed went down. His gun skidded across the floor uselessly. He choked, hands at his throat, eyes wide and terrified as the quiet of the bunker flooded back in around everything. I lay there, breathing hard. The smell of gunpowder sharp in my nose. I watched the light leave his eyes and felt a hollow, terrible, specific piece of something settle in my chest. The gun fell from my hands. I stared at it like it belonged to someone else, like a different person had just done what I'd done. Maya, Kai's voice pulled me back. The cabinet, please, write, save him. Process everything else later. I ran to the yellow cabinet and tore it open. Medical supplies everywhere. I grabbed everything labeled vitamin K, phytonadione, 10 milligrams per milliliter, Roman 4 administration for reversal of anticoagulant overdose. I needed to calculate the dosage based on his weight and the amount he'd taken. No time for calculating. I grabbed the largest vial I could find, a syringe, and ran back to Kai. His lips were blue now, breathing shallow. Blood pooling beneath the chair. The anticoagulant had made his blood too thin, and he was hemorrhaging from everywhere I couldn't see. I found a vein. Thank everything I'd ever learned in those hospital rotations, and I pushed the vitamin K. Fast, too fast probably by the textbook. But he was dying, and the textbook could argue with me later. Stay with me. I pressed my hand flat to his chest, feeling the weak flutter of his heart underneath. Come on, come on. His pulse was weakening, not enough, not fast enough. I needed more. I looked at the chairman's body. At the transfusion machine still running, still pulling Kai's blood out of him and into a corpse. I ripped the tubes out, reversed the connections, started pushing blood back into Kai from the collection bags. Maya, Leo's voice was weak. You can't do that. That blood is. It's his blood, I said sharply. It has been in these bags for less than 5 minutes. It's still viable. I prayed I was right. Prayed the concentration of poison would be lower. Prayed the vitamin K was already doing something in his system. Prayed with everything I had. Kai's body convulsed, once, twice, then he gasped, a horrible rattling sound. But he was breathing. His eyes opened, unfocused, confused, but open. Maya, I'm here. I pressed my forehead all the way to his. I'm right here, stay with me. In the background, Leo was on the phone, calling for backup, for real medical help. The bunkers, sealed doors, were opening somewhere down the corridor. Kai's people had finally broken through the lockout. Armed figures poured into the complex, sweeping every room, but I didn't move, didn't let go. I just held him there, feeling his heartbeat slowly strengthen, watching color return to the edges of his lips. He tried to die for me. And I had killed to save him. We were even now, blood for blood, life for life. 6 months later, Winter had come back to the big train station. The clock above the information booth still gleamed brass and perfect. The vaulted ceiling still soared overhead, painted with its constellations. The marble floors still shone under the weight of thousands of feet every day, but I wasn't scrubbing them anymore. I stood beneath the clock and watched the evening rush move through, commuters flooding the terminal, purposeful, distracted, alive in the way people are when they don't know how close death walks right beside them. I knew. I had felt death's breath, had watched it circle the man standing behind me. The wool coat I wore whispered against my legs as I shifted my weight. Cashmere, dark gray, tailored. The price of it would have fed the girl I used to be for a decade. Not probably. Definitely, my reflection in the brass directory showed someone I barely recognized anymore. Healthy. Strong, hair no longer flat and lank but styled. Skin actually glowing. The scar on my cheek was still there. Would always be there, but it looked different now. It didn't look like a brand. It looked like a mark of survival. You're thinking too loud. His voice came from behind me, close enough that I felt the words against my ear. I turned. Kai Jian stood there in a dark coat open over a charcoal suit. The winter wind had pulled at his hair. A thin scar ran the length of his left arm, the only visible reminder of what the anticoagulant had done to him. But I knew there were others, scars you couldn't see from the outside, places where his body had almost torn itself apart, places I'd stitched back together with stubbornness and medical knowledge, and something that had quietly become love without me noticing the exact moment it happened. I was thinking about the first time we stood in this place. I said, "You were dying, so were you." I reached up and straightened his collar. Any excuse to touch him. I always found myself needing excuses. You just hid it better. His hand caught mine, his thumb tracing the pulse point at my wrist. I'm not hiding anything anymore. That was true. The past 6 months had been reconstruction. Not just of his organization, though that had happened too. With the chairman gone, the power vacuum that had opened was one Kai had filled completely and without hesitation. But more importantly, reconstruction of themselves. 2 broken people learning how to fit together without cutting each other on all their sharp edges. The hearing is tomorrow. I said it quietly. Officer Reed's death, my testimony, self-defense, they had called it. Justified, but I had still pulled a trigger and watched life leave someone's eyes. I'll be there. Kai's free hand came up and cupped my jaw, tilting my face toward his. Every moment of it. You won't face a single second alone. I know, and I did. That was what we had built between us. Something strange and violent, and, against all reasonable expectation, unbreakable. A foundation made of blood and survival and the choice, made more than once, to keep fighting for the person beside you. What about the group, dismantled? His thumb traced the scar on my cheek, without flinching, without pity. just acknowledging it was there and that it was mine, Doctor. Yoon is facing trafficking charges. The facility has been seized. The other girls, his voice gentled around those words, are all in protected custody. Safe, healing. Free. Such a small word for something so enormous. I'd spent months in therapy working through what had been done to me. Working through what I had done in response, the nightmares were less frequent now. The panic attacks were manageable. Most days, I could breathe without checking the exits first. And medical school? Kai asked. I smiled, and it felt natural now in a way it hadn't for a long time. I start next month. Johns Hopkins agreed to remit me, full scholarship. Apparently having a recommendation letter from someone with Kai's kind of influence carries weight. I merely suggested they reconsider. His expression was entirely innocent, very politely. You threatened to donate so much money, they'd have to name an entire building after you. Semantics, I laughed. The sound echoed in the station's vast space, and I watched heads turn nearby. People who recognized us, a ghost and a shadow. The tabloids had their own names for us. The crime boss and the woman he'd destroyed his father to save. They didn't know the half of what had actually happened. Kai's expression shifted towards something more serious. I need to tell you something. Tension moved through my stomach. What? I'm working to go legitimate? The organization. I'm transitioning it. Cleaning up the operations. It'll take years, but he paused. I don't want you to wake up one day and realize you've tied yourself to something you can't live with. Little late for that. I traced the tattoos visible above his collar. Besides, I knew what you were the moment you caught me. I chose you anyway. You chose survival. No, I met his eyes. I chose you. There's a difference. Something changed in his expression. Vulnerability breaking through the careful control like light coming through a crack. Maya. He said my name like he'd been waiting to say the thing that came after it. I love you. He said it steady and sure. I know it's complicated. I know what we're built on. I know what a therapist would say about all of this. But I don't care. I love you. He stood looking at me, silent, and for one terrible moment I thought I'd read everything wrong. Thought what was between us was gratitude and survival instinct and proximity, but not that. Then he kissed me. Not soft, not careful, a claiming, a promise. His hands fisted in my coat and pulled me close, and I tasted 6 months of restraint breaking all at once. 6 months of moving around what we both felt, because naming it made it real and real things could be lost. When he pulled back, his forehead pressed to mine. I fell in love with you in that bunker when you refused to let me go. When you turned yourself into a one-woman emergency room with nothing but stubbornness and a med school education. His breath moved across my lips. You were magnificent, terrifying. Mine, yours, I agreed, then quieter. As long as you're mine, always, the clock above us chimed 7. The evening rush was finally thinning. Kai stepped back, but his hand found mine immediately, fingers lacing together. Come on. Leo made dinner. Leo cooks. Leo does everything. He guided me toward the exit. He also wanted me to tell you that the final numbers came through from the group's financial records. I went still. How many? He was quiet for a moment. 47. His jaw tightened. 47 women. Over 15 years, some survived, some didn't. We're still locating them all, still reaching out, still offering support. 47. 47 lives taken. 47 stories like mine, but also 47 reasons that this had to mean something. 47 reasons to keep going. I want to help. I said it before I'd fully thought it through. When I finish school, I want to open a clinic. Somewhere safe for women who have been trafficked, who have been hurt, who need medical care without being interrogated. Kai stopped walking, looked at me with something I recognized now. It was awe. You want to become a doctor for the broken. I am the broken. I touched the scar on my cheek. Who better to understand it? He kissed me again, softer this time. Like something reverent, I'll fund it. Every dollar, every resource, whatever you need. We stepped out into December cold. The city stretched out in front of us, bright and dangerous and alive. A car waited at the curb. black and sleek. Leo at the wheel. As we slid into the back seat, Kai's arm came around me and pulled me against his side. I fit there like I'd been designed for exactly that space. "I have one question," I said as we pulled into traffic. "Ask it, those words you said in the bunker, in Korean. What did they mean?" He was quiet for a moment. "Then the first ones, poisoned chalice, I was warning you, telling you what I'd done, and the earlier ones. When you were saying goodbye," his hand tightened on my shoulder, "those weren't goodbye. Then what were they?" He turned, his dark eyes finding mine in the low light of the moving car. "They were a promise. Wait for me. Because I knew, even dying, even poisoned, I knew you wouldn't let me go." Tears came to my eyes before I could stop them. "You trusted me to save you. I trusted you to fight." He wiped a tear from my cheek with his thumb. "That's who you are, Maya. A fighter, the ghost who became a warrior, the vessel who broke her own chains, the woman who bled for someone and killed for him and refused to look away from either thing she'd done." I leaned into his touch. "I'm not that strong." "Yes, you are." He kissed my temple. "You survived 8 months of people trying to reduce you to nothing. You survived the group. You survived me. You're stronger than anything I've ever carried, and I have carried a great deal." The car drove through Manhattan, past the station, past the hospital where my residency would start, past the tunnels where I had hidden in the dark and waited to die quietly, past all of it, into something new and still unwritten. "Where are we going?" I asked. Kai smiled. "Home, home. Not a penthouse, not a bunker. A brownstone in Brooklyn he'd bought last month. Quiet, almost ordinary. A place where the man who ran an empire and the woman who'd bled through its cracks could sit at a kitchen table and pretend to be regular people for a few hours. Even though we both knew we'd never be regular, we were blood and violence and survival. We were the ghost and the shadow. We were 2 broken pieces that had fused into something that couldn't be taken apart anymore without destroying both of them. And as the city lights blurred past the window, his hand steady in mine, I understood something I hadn't quite been able to name before. For 8 months I'd been a ghost, but he caught me when I fell, and I was finally standing solid enough that he would never have to fall alone again. We were each other's reason to survive. And in the kind of world we lived in the dark and the blood and the violence and all of it, that was the closest thing to grace either of us was ever going to find.